Okay, we're playing with the Rann-Mayer-Carpenter today, and I just thought I'd show you a little bit about what was going on. I've taken the support that the gearbox and the motor mount were on. I've got them back off now and situated, and I had that back. I had that in the supports for the gearbox and the motor mounted on there, just to check alignment on my pulleys. So I've got them pulled back off, and I finished welding that up from the tack welds that I had on it. I'm going to get it back installed. I just thought you might kind of like to know the layout. So let me take you down here, and I'll show you what we got going on. Okay, so this is our overarm support, or this is our mounting brackets. I guess it's not an overarm support at all. And I don't know if you remember the original pictures, but it was 18 inches taller than what it is. I cut 18 inches out of the bottom and dropped it down. Now the magnetic starter switch was mounted here, and this is the way it will mount back onto the back of the lathe, and we'll put it on in just a minute. But I changed it around, and I mounted the magnetic starter on this side, right up here. It seemed to be about the best place. On this side, we're going to put bracing back on, and I'll kind of show you the layout of that once we get it in position. So let me move the camera around, and we'll stick this back on here. And it's just painted up with some aluminum paint that I had there, just because that's what was available to me. I just wanted to kind of keep it from rusting. So let me move this around and we'll see what we got going on. All right, so this is that back corner of the lathe, and here's our mounting bracket, and we're just going to muscle it back into place, or where it's going to lift up. And we got 7 bolts that bolt it into place. And we'll get it lifted up, and then we've got one stud that sticks in from the outside. It's actually not a stud, it's a bolt, but it's running from the outside, and the head's ground on it because there's not clearance otherwise. That was easy. Okay, so that takes care of that. We can get the chain back off of there. Alright, so that's the way it mounts on the back. Our overarm assembly is sitting down over here. I'm going to go ahead and clean it all up, and then we'll start working on it next. Actually, next I've got to do a brace on the bracket that we just mounted on there. And it'll be a little bit of a chore, but this also will, after we get that done, I will go back to this. When they assembled this and they put the gearbox on and then the motor, they put everything in position, and then they welded all the brackets around it so it doesn't come apart. So I had to really work to get the gearbox out of there, and I ended up and cut the top off for the motor. we're going to change that around a little bit. It can be cleaned up quite a bit, which we'll do eventually, but I'm going to change this around so that we can unbolt the components out of there and get it out without having it all be in one assembly that we can't ever do anything with. The way this was mounted is it bolts on right here, well, through this bolt, and there's two more that were down here. And then clear up here at the top is where it welded right onto here. So I'm going to change that around. I'm going to build some little spacers. I just had some washers on the back. We'll build some dedicated little spacers that actually fit and hold that in position where it belongs. And then we're going to cut this and recontour it. I'm going to kind of match the contour of the headstock a little bit so it doesn't stick straight out here. We'll angle it back a little bit when we remount it. Then we're going to bring this down a little bit sharper angle, and we're going to bolt it on here. But instead of welding it on solid like it was originally, originally it was just welded in here like this, and you couldn't disassemble it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to plate this and bolt it, probably with just 4 bolts, 3, 4, whatever we've got clearance for with our bracket. Then I'll weld this to the plate that mounts on here. So when I do go to disassemble it to rework it, or if it has to be disassembled for whatever reason long after I'm gone, it'll be a matter of pulling the bolts and nuts off of here and unbolting it here and then unbolting it here. Then the whole front assembly, or then this whole bracket, support bracket, can come off. And then if we need to disassemble this, why, we can just unbolt it from the back of the lathe. And that way there's nothing permanently affixed there that we have to cut off like I did to get this apart again. That way, if this lathe were ever set back in a shop that had a line shaft, which I don't know that I'll live that long or if that'll ever happen, but if it were to go back into a shop that had a line shaft, why, everything could just be unbolted, and we'd have a few holes that weren't there originally, but those are holes that were there when I acquired it, so there's nothing I can really do about that. So that's kind of the plan. Next thing is probably to cut that bottom brace off and go ahead and build the bottom mounts, and then we'll start fitting the pipe back up, because we're gonna bend it a little bit and do some goofy stuff with it to hopefully give it a nice clean look. This oil port will be changed around at some point. It's just pipe that's on here on both sides, and why they've got one down close with a street L and why the other one is sticking up here in the air with a standard L, I don't really understand, but I think it would probably be more appropriate to have a couple of the little visual glass oilers that thread in there like was on some of the earlier machines, very similar to what's on the gearbox on the planer. So we may search for something there, we may build something there, I'm not sure. Magnetic starters will mount over here on the side. This magnetic starter is going to mount right about there. So we've got access to it from the inside. Looked at several different places to mount it. Nothing I saw really appealed to me any more than this one did. I thought about mounting it back in here, but that becomes an issue with the belts. There's clearance and everything for it. It wouldn't be a problem there, but I see that as a potential problem to be able to reach in there if it had to be reset or to access it for wiring and stuff. And the belt could be pulled off out of the way, but that's a little bit of a potential hazard. Where I would have liked it would have been on this side, but since that support's going on this side and coming down, why, I didn't really have any options there. So, and I thought about mounting it down on the end or down underneath or something, and I just didn't like that. We're running more wire than we need to, and it's something I think is not necessary. So I kind of figured the best of all worlds was to mount it on that end of the column there. But now that I've got this, I'm going to go ahead, like I say, we'll do the support brackets next, then on to the gearbox and motor mounts, and we'll get them up, and then we can hopefully get this running, make sure everything's going to function, see how it sounds, and once we get everything else mounted in place, why, then I can go back and put the tailstock and everything on and free up all the controls and things like that, and have something we can turn the knobs on a little bit and play with. But like I say, everything will be contained. It'll be one assembly, or all the parts will be right here with it, and I don't have to worry about misplacing things, some stuff sitting over here in the back or underneath something. So we'll get her back together, get her going, and move on. So anyway, a little bit of an update. Hopefully you found it interesting. Comments, leave them in the comment section for me below. If you haven't already subscribed, I'd appreciate it. Help this channel grow a little bit. And as always, thanks for taking the time to watch.